Hello and welcome to the CX Files for 11th April 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan in Montreal. Mark, great to talk to you today. And we will be seeing each other live face to face in less than a month in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming soon. I've got a 2-year-old who now knows how to say America and Atlanta, and so she's asking to come and see you and all of the guys.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. And sounds like she'll have no trouble at U.S. Immigration and Customs Control.
I shouldn't think so. She has a British passport as well as Brazilian, so she can sort of pick and choose which one. I'm just waiting to get her Irish one as well.
Oh my gosh, it'll end up being like almost like a collection of passports. You know how like some when we were kids we collected choose your own adventure books. I think your little one will be choosing her own passport.
Yeah, I think it's like Jason Bourne when he's traveling and chooses which identity to use.
Well, look, Mark, we have got a really interesting multinational or international podcast that we're going to be doing today. Now, I had the chance to catch up with a longtime friend of the CX Files, Alex Mead. Now, some people may recall Alex has been interviewed in the past, and he's always a provocative person who's got some really strong opinions, and quite frankly, some very good ones that I would dare say a great number of us would certainly align ourselves with. But this time, I had the chance to catch up with Alex because I noted that he's been doing some work in a country that has been bubbling under the surface for a little while in the context of customer experience management, and that's Bahrain. Alex has been setting up his own contact center there, or a contact center for the company he's with. And I thought it would be a good idea to catch up with him to find out a little bit what's driving interest in Bahrain. You know, when I was at CCW in Berlin a few weeks ago, there were a number of people from that country who were represented at the event in Germany. There was a lot of discussion about Bahrain coming to the forefront as an alternative location, potentially for English language. Certainly as a hub for Arabic, it's outstanding. And there are niche West European languages that can be found in Bahrain as well. So Alex was able to give a little bit of the 411 on what's driving Bahrain as a potential alternative for CX. What are some of the more interesting elements that a CX operator can find in Bahrain, and a little bit of his own on-the-ground experience about, as an expat, what it's like living there.
That's great. And I'm looking forward to that because I have been out there once, but my focus on that trip was more software development. So I wasn't really looking at CX that time. So it would be good to get the perspective from Alex directly. And as you said, Alex has always got, provocative and he has a thought-provoking approach in that he basically takes no prisoners. He says that if you are going to comment on building a contact center, running a large outfit, then you need to actually do it rather than position yourself as a TikTok influencer with CX expertise. So I think that we'd certainly agree with that. And it's something that is pervasive in the CX community on LinkedIn, is that there's a lot of commentators, but there's fewer people who are actually doing it on the ground.
That's why I really enjoy the interactions I have with Alex, because he's not one of these individuals on LinkedIn who, as I think you referenced in a blog post one time, is talking about how walking their dog is giving them inspiration for the rest of the day. And something that drives me crazy are the people who keep talking about how grateful they are and their gratitude. I still don't know what that actually means outside of being some hollow Oprah Winfrey expression from the 1990s, new age nonsense. Alex, as you say, takes no prisoners. He gives the straight goods, and he really, I think, provides in this interview with some real insight about how Bahrain is popping up and how we should keep an eye on that geography from the perspective of both offshoring and nearshoring. So without further ado, let's go to the chat with Alex and find out what he has to say. One of the things that we love at the CX Files is having people who have previously been guests come back to give some thoughts, to share their views, and to just get an update in terms of what they're doing in the domain of customer experience. And we are very fortunate today to be taking advantage of the opportunity of bringing back a friend of the podcast and indeed a former guest, Alex Mead, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Total CX. And I'm just noting that that is a Beyond Group company. Alex, great to see you. Thank you for coming back and spending some time with us.
And thanks for talking to me twice. Very few people do that. I'm joking. Lots of people talk to me more than once.
I would have no doubt of that. Me, on the other hand, I usually get one shot and then that's it. I'm thrown out the window. But that's another story entirely, as we can talk offline about that. Look, Alex, you have been very candid in your in sharing your thoughts on the CX world on LinkedIn. And that's one of the reasons I think people appreciate your contributions so much to the customer experience discourse. And you reached out to me recently to give me a bit of an update in terms of what you were up to. And I thought it was fascinating. And I thought this was a real chance to bring you back on the pod to talk a little bit about an angle that you're taking, your terms of your career, an angle you're taking in terms of opening up, I think, awareness about an exciting new delivery market, and that is Bahrain. Now, for full disclosure, I've never been to Bahrain. I've been invited several times, and I cannot wait to come and visit. It looks absolutely phenomenal and fantastic, certainly from a touristic standpoint. But what intrigues me is the extent to which I'm hearing from people like you, as well as other friends in the industry, that Bahrain is starting to become a niche play from the customer experience angle. So as a first question, as a lead off to get into our discussion, what prompted you to get involved in Bahrain from a CX perspective? Give us a bit of a background to why we're having this chat today.
Certainly. So I came to Bahrain by coincidence 5 years ago. I was reached out to say, could I help do some CX strategy? I'm not normally a strategy guy. I'm normally the guy that leads the CX operation. So we'll touch on what I'm doing in a second. But I came to the country 5 years ago, and first of all, there are those that think Brexit was a good idea, and there are those like me who think Brexit was a bad idea. So the timing made me think, okay, I'd rather try something international again. And I've worked in over 25 countries. So I arrived in Bahrain 5 years ago, like many Brits, with not a lot of insight or knowledge on what Bahrain actually is like as a country and environment. So I realized a couple of things. First of all, there are 5 months of the year where it is hot. It is really hot. It's 40 plus degrees. But it's amazing how you can adapt to things. So first year, I in 10 minutes, I'm dripping with sweat. Now I can literally, even midsummer, go out on my electric scooter for 1 hour and not be sweaty. It's crazy how your body adapts. But in terms of an environment and why CX is actually, I mean, if you had a scale of advanced CX versus CX that still is old school, you'd definitely put Bahrain more towards the old school, which in some ways is a good thing because they still have people making direct phone calls. This was 5 years ago, so there were a few IVRs. The chat was still fairly primitive and new. And you basically, if you had a problem, you picked up the phone or you emailed or you did basic web chat, which for me was intriguing because it reminded me how customer experience used to be 10, 15 years ago before we overcomplicated things. And you know what I also realized is we pat ourselves on the back in Europe, the UK, and the USA and North America because we have apps that show us the tracking time of the delivery driver. But in Bahrain, you'll get the WhatsApp from the person delivering you directly will WhatsApp your private number. It's not an app. And you can phone them, you can share your location. So I was intrigued by two things. First of all, it's kind of like CX was 10 years ago before we overcomplicated with endless surveys and things, but also there is so much of a direct, I'm the delivery driver for your groceries, for your parcel. I'm going to contact the customer directly. And, both of those made me realize things are quite different here. So we need to marry the amazing innovation in technology that's available to the rest of the world with these old school principles. And I think we can do something pretty special. And that's what I've learned. And I'm starting to do a lot more here in Bahrain.
Okay, this is really interesting because, a couple of years ago in the annual sounding of enterprises in Western Europe and Asia Pacific and North America, we decided that we were going to include Bahrain in our list of countries to determine favorability and how buyers of CX services were thinking about it relative to perhaps some of the more emerging as well as some of the more traditional spots. And something that surprised me, and maybe it shouldn't have, but even from the outset when we included the country, it was getting a higher degree of favorability and a higher degree of positivity than I anticipated. And I'd be curious from the standpoint of you who spent some time there, what do you see as the key differentiator in the broader offshore nearshore dynamic for Bahrain relative to some of the other countries, again, from the emerging category as well as some of the more traditional categories? What makes the country stand out in what I think we can agree is just a cornucopia of different choices these days?
Absolutely. So I'm quite fortunate. I think I've worked in over 25 countries, and 15 years ago, I worked for a company where I had to set up 3,000 outsourced contact center positions in less than 9 months. And we could pay no more than £3 per hour, so about $5 Canadian per hour, fully loaded. So I couldn't go to developed outsourcing countries. So I went to, I think I was one of the first to do Ghana. I did Ecuador, I did Costa Rica. I did places, Egypt, before Egypt was a craze. 20 plus countries where I was almost the first to set up BPO there. So I know what good and bad is. But what is fairly unique about Bahrain is that the English spoken is almost like Oxford and Cambridge English, purely because the majority of families, they send their children to the English schools, or they even just educate them in British schools here in Bahrain. So your English is English that everyone can understand. And I discovered something only in the last few months, that Arabic is clearly a hugely spoken language in the world, but in Bahrain, they have a thing called White Arabic, which because there's many variations of Arabic in the Middle East and in the world, and White Arabic is the one that's understood by all. It's like the Oxford Cambridge of Arabic. So in essence, you can have languages which, if you're English from Manchester, Newcastle, Scotland, you'd understand. And if you're from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai, you'll understand the Arabic. So the language is just astonishing. But there's another aspect that cultural thing I didn't appreciate is the salaries are not as high as you'd think. So you get the labor arbitrage, of course. They're like machines. You ask them to work 6 days a week, and I've seen some people make them work 6 days. Imagine us thinking, I get 1 day weekends. There's no complaint. They will literally do it, churn out call after call, chat after chat after email. But that is where the opportunity is, because that's not the way that's what they will do if they're asked to do it. But as a good CX leader, you should give them better environments, better working patterns, and better, technology to give great CX. So they're 100% committed, but you can give them existences and employee experiences that get so much more out of them than they're used to. So if you marry the Western European, the USA, the way we treat our customer service and contact center staff with empowerment and loyalty and reward with their work ethic, you'll get astonishing results. And I've seen people doing concurrent chats that would blow your mind. So you think about, as we said at the start, the old school work ethic. If you then overlay Gen AI and the cool stuff on top of that, it really is a huge opportunity.
Okay, so Alex, let me ask you then, if we're talking if I'm an enterprise CX leader and I'm looking to engage with a BPO that's based in Bahrain, what would I be thinking about? What would be the key sweet spots from, say, a functional perspective or from a technology perspective? You've talked about the linguistics, which I think is fascinating, but if you were thinking about what would be the optimal type of service, maybe from an industry angle, even, what do you think Bahrain lends itself to right now?
Well, in Total CX, I'm the CEO, and we're updating our website. The company was actually founded a year ago by the parent group, but we're going to do a big proper launch. I only joined 2 months ago in the next month. I've created 4 strands, but these strands are based on what I have wanted as a CX leader looking to outsource, which I think is a great angle. And we can talk about 4 things. We can offer you the resources, the staff, the agents. And obviously, by offering resources, as an outsourcer, you need to do something better than getting the staff yourself. So we can offer you flexible resources. So you have a huge peak, we can manage that, the typical BPO stuff. So resources tick. And by the way, our resources are going to be capable of doing what best-in-class resources do. They can talk to you across any channel. So we're not going to have voice, social media, chat, email in different teams. It will be fully multi-channeled customer service staff. But secondly, we're then going to support those resources with technology. So the people, and then we're going to say to our clients, and we are across all industries, you don't need to worry about investing in Genesys or Avaya, Cisco. We will provide the contact center platforms. If you have a CRM platform, sure, we can use that, or we can provide you our own platform, Oracle, Freshdesk, Zendesk, Salesforce, whatever you like. And that's the power of the Beyond Group, because it's a big, huge IT data management company, telco company. So we can give you the resources and the technology. But then there's two other things I'm very keen to make sure we underpin everything with. Because if we're just answering phone calls, emails, and chats, and we're providing the technology, we're still not improving the CX of our clients. So we 100% will say, and we will offer you full analytics and insight on every interaction you have with us. So whether you ask for it or not, we're going to come to you and say, did you know we think you can avoid 20% of avoidable phone calls by putting this on your website, or by giving a more intelligent digital chatbot to answer these questions. So our technology can deliver that for you, but whether you do it for us or not, we're not going to be happy to take money for answering avoidable phone calls, emails, chats. So that's part of the glue. Work with us, and we'll together give you class-leading custom experiences, which is cost-effective as well as exceptional. And then the fourth and final one, which is, I'm sure you've seen it many times, and with my own personal experience with Alvarez and myself for almost 5 years, we give you the strategy. So, and I want to be different again. I think of all the bad experiences I've had from BPOs, as well as the good ones, I think, okay, we would be willing to come and meet with you in your site. I'll leave a couple of people there for a week if you want, just to observe the way things are done. Journey map, service design, blueprinting, whatever mechanism you want. And then we'll tell you, okay, here's where we think there are opportunities to improve your CX. So if you work with us, we can give you the resources, the technology, the data and insights, but at the very least, you've got some ammunition to work with your own boards. And I'm finding actually that last point, people, hey, Alex, I hear you've done this with an airline or this with a utility company. Talk to us. And then when I talk to them, they realize, okay, we don't have the skills and resources and technology in-house to do this. So it's kind of a door opener. So, and we're not the only company in the world to think that way, but in Bahrain, we want to be, innovative. So I think the one tangible difference I can give, and you touched on at the start, when I talk about CX with a different viewpoint, is because, look, there are too many people who, I respect almost everyone in CX, but they talk, but they haven't had their hands on the reins for so long. And I'm suddenly now looking at hundreds of people for 5 existing clients, in which I'm thinking, I have the hat of being a CEO to make sure you're motivated, you have the technology, you have the innovation, but the BPO financial mechanism of making sure we're meeting the client's KPIs and SLAs, and we're making sure that we're making money. And it's fascinating when I look at these people in the eyes and I think, right, not only do I have to deliver a strategy, I have to make every day. If you're representing that client, you care about that client, this client, and I'm really enjoying it. It's an impossible task of spinning so many plates on poles, but it really is. And so it's the balance of operational leadership, 24/7 by 365 for some services where you've committed to those clients. You will answer their calls, their chats, their emails. You'll get quality scores of X, FCR of Y, but then also my commitment that we will work with them to implement best practice. So yeah, it's I'm recruiting, as you can imagine, because you need people to help with that. But it's fascinating experience.
Yeah, it's interesting. You made me giggle when you talked about people who are in the CX space who you respect, and I think you and I are very much of the same view, but maybe haven't had their hands on the reins for a while. I think there's a lot of armchair quarterbacks, to use a North American expression, out there.
Absolutely, I know.
And Monday morning quarterbacks, even though I don't enjoy watching professional football, American football, that is. Look, at the end of the day, I'm really intrigued as somebody who comes from North America, who's lived in Europe and lived in different parts of the world. One of the things that I think is important in our game is, if you're a client or you're an outsourcer, potentially going to a new location for a short or an extended period, you're going to want to be able to spend some time there. You're going to be able to want to get out and do things. Now, let's be perfectly frank, Alex. We know that there are some parts of the world where it's not conducive to exploring. It's not conducive to potentially going out and taking advantage of leisure activities like we could in Western Europe or Canada.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If I'm an expat coming over to work with an outsourcer, or as a client, spend some time with the outsourcer, what am I going to be doing in my leisure time? What am I going to be doing on the weekends? What would surprise somebody who doesn't know much about the country when they come and they're going to be spending more than just the 9 to 5 in the office?
Great question. So first of all, Bahrain is an Arab country, of course, but alcohol is legal other than Ramadan. So I'm in just over halfway through Ramadan, and I committed to my team, you will not see me eat or drink when I'm in the office, because I'm not a Muslim. They know that I have a cup of tea when I get home, even if the sun's not down. So, and that's out of respect. But because there are bars, there are the most amazing restaurants, there are golf courses. There's we had the first Grand Prix each year is in the Bahrain Grand Prix. So we have a Bahrain International Circuit. There's a huge amphitheater in which global stars play every month. So, but it's one of those unusual countries where traffic is never that bad. It's an island, it's joined to Saudi Arabia by a long bridge called a causeway, and Qatar is only 30 kilometers east of us. Yeah, east of us. So, and then you can fly to Dubai and Abu Dhabi in an hour. So, but Bahrain is like an oasis within the Middle East, because, of course, you have to respect the Arab culture, and there are parts of it you wouldn't walk around in cut-off denim shorts. Well, as a man, you can, but as a female, you wouldn't. But there are parts where it's almost as if you're in the USA or UK, because anything goes. So, if you want a glass of Jack Daniels, or you want to sing karaoke, which I do far too much, there are literally dozens of bars where you can do that. So, and the other thing about Bahrain, which a lot of people don't realize, is there are so many expats. There's a huge Filipino community.
Yeah.
There's a huge Indian community. But even there's a US Navy base. There are far more British people than I realize in this country. There's the British Club where you can go, and there's the Navy Club and the Rugby Club. So it's actually, I've been fortunate enough earlier to live and work in countries for months on end, and this is probably the one that I like the most. And I can literally get on my electric scooter and go to the supermarket 2 kilometers away and put the shopping on and come back, and not worry about locking my villa or apartment. So it surprised me. As I said, the only downside is if you came in July to September, you'd go, it's rather hot. That's the only downside, because it's 40 plus degrees, but even that you get used to.
Okay, cool. Well, let's wind up our chat by maybe a 40,000-foot question. And again, I think you're very well suited to answer this, considering that you have worked abroad in our industry for quite some time. I think, Alex, we can agree that there is a definite transition or an evolution happening in how the offshore nearshore dynamic is playing out. Putting on your soothsayer's cap and pulling out your crystal ball, where do you see Bahrain figuring in the broader offshore nearshore delivery for Western Europe, or fields or shores further beyond in that 5-year horizon?
Very good question. So first of all, English and Arabic, but then there are tens of thousands of Tagalog speakers here, and we would be cheaper than Manila and Cebu, and those regions are saturated now, as you well know. So, but taking English and Arabic alone, there are millions of Arabic speakers in Europe, the UK, even the USA, and with technology, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. So, our strategy in our board is, okay, Ukraine, the Middle East, and then anywhere. And we are absolutely set our sights on working with British companies, even America, because there's absolutely no reason. Most people want to talk via digital channels these days anyway. So there'll be some clients who, if they're not comfortable with the voice, there's still no reason why you would not outsource your chat, your email, your messenger, which is going to be Gen AI supported in 5 years anyway, isn't it? So even if the agents don't type it perfectly, it'll be corrected. But there's two interesting aspects I've seen, which I forgot to mention, that really surprised me. Back to the culture. We ask for CSAT after every call, every chat, and we have a scale of 1 to 5. Very simple: 1 terrible, 5 amazing. And I was amazed when I saw this. Any customer that gives a 3 or less, 3, which most people think was average, we have a specialist team called the proactive team that will listen to those calls and think, do you know what, that customer's right, we didn't solve their issue, or we need to phone them back because they only gave us a 3. There's all those companies that try and push you to give a high NPS. This is different to that because they think, I can see why you gave a 3 because we didn't solve your issue. And the second thing that they do is if a customer has phoned us 3 times in the same day, we think there must be something wrong with that. So we'll look at all the 3 calls and think, why did you have to phone us 3 times? So that's what they do without the AI, without the data and text analytics. So with the power of technology these days, because it's not a huge country that's ever going to be saturated, and there's not going to be 7 or 8 huge BPOs in Bahrain. If there's 2 or 3 or 4 of us strong players that can underpin the culture with the great language skills and the stuff that says, hey, do you know what? We are going to be innovative at the way that we make sure we police our own service for your customers. I think we'll clean up. And there's just one last point I forgot to mention, that there's a body called Tamkeen, Tamkeen, who literally will subsidize the salaries of new graduates or new employees we recruit for the first 3 years. So, wow, you can get and subsidize, we're talking over 50% salary subsidy for the first 3 years. So we can offer as good an experience as the Indias, the South Africas, the Philippines, which are the common ones. And you and I both know there's Eastern Europe and Caribbean even. There's no reason we can't give as good an experience. And then we're small and agile enough, I think, to be more focused on our clients. So yeah, who knows? But in 5 years, there's no reason why, whether I'm doing this or back client side, I wouldn't think, hey, someone said Bahrain, let me look into it. And I think the last point is, you touched on earlier, 5 years ago, I had no idea about the country. So we have to educate people, which I know you can do as well.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks. It's been great catching up. Always a pleasure to have you on the CX Files. And I look forward to recording our next one on site remotely in Bahrain with you, potentially at the British Club over a glass of Jack Daniels.
That'll be marvelous. Absolutely. It's a deal.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favourite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.